Welcome to this week's Hebrew class. And as usual, we're going through the book of John in Hebrew. And we are dealing with chapter 1, verses 7 to 11. So let us begin. And first we begin with showing you the Nakud, the vowel markings, and how to appropriate them, and also these great useful resources. So from then we can continue. And we start with a Zion, which is the seventh letter of the alphabet, so its value is 7. And we go through the letters. Hey, Vav, Aleph, Vayet, Aleph, Lamed, Ayin, Dalet, Vav, Tav, Lamed, Hey, Ayin, Yod, Dalet, Ayin, Lamed, Hey, Aleph, Vav, Resh. Lamed, Mem, Ayin, Nun, Safit. Now let's read it. Who, which means he. Va, came. Le'edut, for a testimony. Le'ha'id, to testify. Al, about. Ha'or, the light. Le'ma'an, so that. So he came as a testimony to testify about the light, so that. If we look down here, edut is a feminine noun, meaning testimony, proof, evidence, or witness. And he'id is a verb to testify, to indicate, to witness. And I've given you also ed shem, which is the noun for a witness. And then we have letma'an as a preposition, and it means in order to, so that, for the sake of, for the benefit of, or to address. And so let us read that now. Hu, va, le'edut, le'ha'id, al, ha'or, le'ma'an. And the translation, he came for a testimony, to testify about the light, so that. Now we turn to part B, and we have a yod, an aleph, a mem, a yod, a nun, a vav, kaf, lamed, mem sofit, ayin, lamed, yod, dalet, vav. And we read, ya'aminu, ya'aminu, and they shall believe. So they shall believe, with the they being the u at the end. And it is the second one. Kulam. Kulam. Them all, or all of them. Al, by, because al can be used as by. Yado, meaning his hand. Again, as usual, the pronouns are usually on the end. And this is the O at the end, because a vav drops the sound of a vav, and it's just an O, which is the vowel mark. His hand, so that all men might believe through him. So in the English they put through him. In the Hebrew it's by his hand. And I've given you he'amin, which is the verb to believe. So now we can read that. Ya'aminu kulam al yado. They shall believe, them all, by his hand. And now we turn to verse 8, which is represented with a chet, which is the 8th letter of the alphabet. And then we have a hey, vav, aleph, lamed, aleph, hey, yod, hey, aleph, vav, resh, kaf, yod, aleph, mem sofit, lamed, hey, ayin, yod, dalet. And we read it. Who, he, lo, not, haya, he was, ha'or, the light, ki, im. Now often these two together, they sort of, when we see that, it generally gives us a translation of but. But le ha'id, but to testify. Again, with that hey, it's not a noun, but rather it's like causative, to cause to testify. He was not the light, but he was to testify. And I've given you ki im has the meaning of but, because of, for, if. So it can be used in a few different ways. So let us read it. Hu lo ha ya ha or ki im le ha id. He, not he was, the light, but to testify. And then we've got part B of that. We have an ayin lamed, he, aleph, vav, resh. Al, meaning about, ha-or, the light. So he came to testify regarding the light, or about the light. And I've given you here al as a prep. It can have a meaning of about, regarding, because of, including, on, upon, or above. So we can see it has quite a few different meanings. And so we read it. Al ha'or, about the light. And now we come to 9. It's represented with a tet, which is the 9th letter of the alphabet. And we look at the letters. He, aleph, vav, resh. He, aleph, mem, tav, yod. He, mem, aleph, yod, resh. Lamed, kaf, lamed, aleph, dalet, mem, safit, aleph, shin, resh. Now let's read it. Ha-or, meaning the light. Ha-a-mi-ti, meaning the true. Because we know down here, emet means the true. For true, or truth, or justice. And then we've got amiti is an adjective, basically, for true, correct, real, original, genuine. And then we have ha-me-ir, the one illuminating. Now this time, it's found here, he-ir, as a verb. It means to shine, to glow, to illuminate, to light up, and also me'ir, right? We've actually got that there. So it's more like this word as an adjective for illuminating or lighting. The one illuminating, le kol adam. Now just a note here that often the kamatz there is actually taken as a short O sound, according to the modern grammar rule of the kamatz, where it's a closed loop. So we could actually say lekol rather than lekal. And it means to all or every man. Share that. So the English is the real light shines to every man that. So let us read it. Ha-or, ha-amiti, ha-me'ir, lekol adam, asher. The light, the true, the one illuminating to every man that. And verse 9b, we have a vayet aleph. Aleph lamed, he ayin vav lamed mem savit. And we have va, which can be came or comes. El to ha-olam, the world, that comes to the world. That was coming, that's how they've translated it, that was coming into the world. And I've given you bo, but the reason I gave you that is because it's different than this one, which is va, same sort of letters, but here it means it's bo, and it means to come, for come. So it's the same root, in other words, but just different vowel. This is like a completed action, so it comes into, comes meaning it's happened, right? Comes into world. And then we have olam, which is a masculine noun for world, universe, cosmos, creation, reality, real world, eternity, realm of existence. So it has numerous meanings based on context. And so we read it. Va el ha-olam comes to the world. And then we come to 10a. And it's represented with the yod, which of course is the 10th letter of the alphabet. And then we have bet, ayin, vav, lamed, mem, safit. Hey, yod, hey. Vav, ayin, lamed. Yod, dalet, vav. Nun, hey, yod, hey. Hey, ayin, vav, lamed, mem, safit. And you will notice that the ayins are in white, and that's telling us that it's silent. So we don't actually say it. So we begin. Ba'olam, ba'olam, in the world. Haya, he was. Remembering that where there's no pronoun, it's always like he or it. He was. Ve'al, yado, and the vet, and by his hand, niya, came to be, ha'olam, meaning the world. He was in the world, and through his hand the world was made to be. Again, I've given you al as a prep, about, at, by, of, etc. And niya is a verb to become or come into being. And so we read it, and I've also added here that's a nifil, passive voice. And we read, Ba'olam haya ve'al yado niya ha'olam. In the world he was, and by his hand came to be the world. And part B, we have a vav, hey, ayin, vav, lamed, mem, safit, lamed, aleph, yod, dalet, ayin, vav. Again we see we have the ayin and the aleph in white, meaning we don't actually pronounce the letters. So let's read. Ve ha'olam, and the world, lo not, yeda'o. Yeda'o. So we have, and the world, not, did know him. We know from down here that yada is a verb to know, to be aware, to recognize. And yeda is a masculine noun for knowledge, know-how, or expertise. And yuda is the verb to be made known, to be made aware. So here we've got yeda'o, which is did know him. Again, the pronoun is on the end. It means him at the end. You could also say not his knowing, but sounds better when we say did know him. But the world did not know him, because I guess that's a more English translation. And so we read it. The ha'olam, and the world. Sorry, I'll just read it in Hebrew. The ha'olam lo yeda'o. And the world not did know him. And now we come to 11. It's represented now with the yod, which we know is the value of 10. And again, the aleph, which we know is the first letter of the alphabet. So it's a 1. So we're in verse 11. And we have a Hey, Vav, Aleph. Veit, Aleph. Bayet, because of the dot. Shin, Lamed, Vav. Vav, Aleph, Shin, Resh. Hey, Mem, Hey. Lamed, Vav. Lamed, Aleph. And we read it. Who, he, va, came. Be, shelo, into his own. So the bet is in, and we got shell. And we know that the last one is like his. So let's look at what shell means. Shell as a preposition means belonging to or of. So shelo there means his own, because it means belonging to him, right? So he came, right, into his own. That's the best translation. Va'asher hema. And that, and hema is those. It can be they, right? But hema down here is a pronoun, can mean they or those. Lo, to him. Right? So lo is a pronoun to him. Right? To it. So it can be like a third person, singular masculine. To him, lo not. So both of these sound exactly the same, but we can see they're written differently. To him not. He came to his own, but those who were his did not. That's how we translate it. So, we read it. Hu va be shelo va asher hema lo lo. And that might sound a bit confusing because it sounds the same. He came into his own, and that those to him not. And then we have kuf, bet, lamed, hey, vav. So we have kibaluhu, 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 received him. Now again, the who at the end is him. So we look at the other root, which is kibel. It's the verb to receive, to welcome, to accept, to make a decision. And I just threw in another one, kaval. So different vowels, but it's a verb to submit, a complaint to complain. So therefore we've got to understand the differences when we see it. That this one is, and that's got a kibbutz under it, which is sort of like a passive. Received, it also means like a past tense. So received him, because it's something that's completed. Received him, did not receive him. Right, so we can just quickly read that, and it is kibeluhu, kibeluhu, received him. And now we want to go through the revision, which doesn't help us now. We have to read it and translate it. That's what we're learning, right? So we know we're in Zion, which, if we remember, is verse 7. And we go, hu, he, va, came, le, edut, for testimony, le, ha'id, to testify, al, about, ha'or, the light, le, ma'an, so that. And then I give you the translation. He came for a testimony to testify about the light, so that ya'aminu, they would believe. Kulam, all of them, or them all. Al, by, yado, his hand. They shall believe, them all, by his hand. And we have a chet, which has a value of 8. And we read, who, he, lo, not, ha, ya, he was, ha, or, the light. Ki, that should have a chirik under it. Ki, for, no, in this case, ki im is but. Le, ha, id, for a testimony, or to testify. That one's the verb form, to testify, right? So he, not he was, the light, but to testify. Al, about, ha, or, the light, about the light. And then we have a tet, which has a value of 9, and it is ha, or, the light, ha, amiti, meaning the true light, ha, me'ir, which means the one illuminating or shining, right? Lekol, remember the Kamatz rule? They generally use that as a short O sound. Lekol, rather than kol. For all Adam, man, for every man. Asher, that. The light, the true, the one illuminating to every man, that. Va comes, because it's a completed action. El to ha'olam, the world, that comes to the world. And then we have a yod, value of 10. Ba'olam, in the world, haya, meaning he was, because there's no pronoun, so it's he was, the al yadu, and by his hand, niya, came to be, ha'olam, the world. In the world he was, and by his hand came to be the world. Now we have the ha'olam, and the world, lo, not, yeda'o, did know him. And the world not did know him. And then we have a yod, value of 10, and a left value of 1, so we're in 11. Who, he, va, came, be, shalo, into his own, va, asher, and that, hema, those, or they, lo, to him, lo, not. He came into his own, and that they, to him, not. Ki beluhu, received him, with the who at the end being him. Received him. And then finally, we come to the valve marks. Important that we try to remember these. We know here that this is called a kamatz. And it gives it that longer A sound, kamatz. And then this one's called a patak. So it's a shorter A sound. And this one's called zere. So it's a longer E sound. This is called sego, which is a shorter E sound. Then we have shva, which can be a silent sound because it's just it breaks up the word into syllables, but it can also have a short E sound, she. When the letter that's with it or above it has like a dagesh in it, then often it's she. Right, and then finally we have a cholam, so that's an O sound. And the bottom line we have shuruk, so we can see it's got a U sound. And this seems to be a longer oo sound, where it's kubutz. And then we have a combination called a kataf segol. Again, it's the break-in syllable followed by the E sound, right? Then we have chirik, that's the I sound. Kataf patak, again after the shava, it's a short A sound, and this is kataf kamatz. After the shava, we have a longer A sound. And then finally, we also, again, repeat the resources because they're so useful and you should use them. And we go through the lettering, but just to make it a little bit more tricky, we're going to go backwards because we want us to remember the value of the letters, not the sequence. Right, so we have Tav 400, Shin 300, Resh 200, Kuf 100, Zade 90, Pei, we normally say Pei, not Pev, 80, Ayin 70, Samek 60, Nun 50, Mem 40, Lamed 30, Kaf 20, Yod 10, Tet 9, Chet 8, Zion 7, Vav 6, Hey 5, Dalet 4, Gimel 3, Bayet 2, Aleph 1. And that brings us to the end of this lesson, and we do pray that you'll be blessed by doing these, because as we do more and more, we remember more and more, but it has to be a consistency in practicing a little bit every day. And so we just want to thank you for joining us, and we do pray you'll have a Shavua Tov, which means a good week. Literally, it means like a good 7. And we just pray you're blessed in Yeshua, our great Master's glorious name. Amen.